She was the quiet storm of the supermodel era, graceful, mysterious, unforgettable. In the world of flashing cameras and non-stop glamour, Tatjana Patitz stood apart. While the fashion world celebrated loud personalities and dramatic headlines, she was calm, composed, and deeply soulful. With her striking features and haunting eyes, Tatjana didn't just walk the runway, she told a story. She became one of the original 90s supermodels, appearing alongside icons like Crawford, Naomi Campbell, and Linda Evangelista. But while their names stayed in headlines and social feeds for decades, Tatjana slowly disappeared from the spotlight. And when she passed away in 2023, the world asked a heartbreaking question: what really happened to the woman who once ruled it all? Tatjana's journey wasn't like the others. She didn't chase fame with the same hunger. She chose privacy over popularity, depth over drama. Her career was filled with iconic Vogue covers, high fashion campaigns, and timeless photographs by legendary photographers like Peter Lindbergh. Yet behind the beauty and the fame was a woman carrying quiet battles, struggles most of the world never saw. While the rest of the 90s supermodels were building empires, Tatjana was stepping away from it all. Was it a personal choice to live a simpler life, or was something more going on behind the scenes? What made one of the most photographed women in the world walk away from the fame so many dream of? And why, when the world finally looked back, did her name feel like a whisper from a past era? This is not just the story of a supermodel, it's the story of a woman who tried to find peace in a world that often demands performance. Stay with us, because Tatjana's story is more than fashion, it's a quiet tragedy that still echoes today. Tatjana Patitz was never the loudest voice in the room, but she didn't need to be. Her presence alone could shift the energy of an entire space. Born in Germany and raised in Sweden, she was far from the usual model stereotype of the time. There was something distant, almost ethereal about her, a quiet beauty that couldn't be copied. When she entered the modeling scene in the late 80s, Tatjana quickly rose to fame, not just because of her looks, but because she had that rare quality, authenticity. She didn't play a role or chase trends. She was just herself, and the camera loved her for it. She became one of the big 5 supermodels, walking for major designers, appearing on countless magazine covers, and starring in campaigns that defined an era. Her most iconic moment? The 1990 British Vogue cover, shot by Peter Lindbergh, alongside Cindy, Naomi, Linda, and Christy. That image didn't just launch careers, it shaped pop culture. George Michael even featured all 5 women in his music video Freedom, 90, turning them into household names overnight. But even then, Tatjana stood out. There was a softness in her gaze, a kind of inner world she never fully let the public into. As the years went on, while others leaned into business ventures, brand deals, and reality shows, Tatjana quietly pulled away. She moved to California, closer to nature, raising her son in peace and choosing horses, ocean air, and trees over red carpets and runways. It seemed like a conscious decision to step out of the chaos. But was she running towards something, or away from it? People in the industry started noticing her absence. Interviews became rare. Paparazzi didn't follow. Fashion Week went on without her. Whispers began to circle. Was she tired of the industry? Was there a deeper pain behind her retreat? No dramatic exit. No scandal. Just silence. And in that silence, a growing sense of mystery. Tatjana didn't leave many clues. She once said that beauty is about depth of character and soul, not attention. Maybe that's why she left it all behind. But the world never stopped wondering, what happened to the supermodel who walked away when the spotlight was brightest? And why did it take her death for so many to ask the questions they never thought to ask before? As Tatjana drifted away from the public eye, people closest to her described her as thoughtful, gentle, and fiercely protective of her peace. Unlike many of her peers, she never seemed to crave the fame that came with the modeling world. But the question lingered, what was she protecting herself from? Some insiders hinted at the pressures that built up behind the glossy covers and catwalk lights. The fashion world could be unforgiving, even to its most treasured icons. Constant travel, body scrutiny, and the demand to always be camera-ready took a quiet toll. Tatjana never publicly spoke out against it, but her actions told a story. She chose distance. There were also whispers about her personal battles, unconfirmed, rarely spoken of. Some believed she was dealing with long-term emotional struggles. Others felt she simply grew tired of pretending, tired of having to be something for everyone else. There was no explosive fall, no scandal splashed across tabloids. Just a slow fading into the background. In a world obsessed with visibility, Tatjana's silence became its own kind of mystery. At the heart of it all was her role as a mother. She gave birth to her son Jonah in 2004 and made him the center of her life. Friends said that motherhood gave her a deeper purpose, one that had nothing to do with fame. She moved to a quiet ranch in Santa Barbara, away from city life, where she spent her days with animals and nature. To some, this was a peaceful retreat. To others, it looked like isolation. Was this her healing, or her hiding? Meanwhile, the fashion world moved on. New faces appeared, new trends rose. But Tatjana's legacy remained. Photographers still spoke of her grace. Editors called her a poet's model, not just for her looks, but for her soul. Yet she stayed quiet, her social media almost non-existent, her public appearances rare and fleeting. There was something deeper going on, but no one could quite name it. Then came the final silence. In early 2023, the news broke: Tatjana Patitz had passed away. The world reacted with shock, sadness, and guilt. It was as if her story had ended too soon, with so many questions still hanging in the air. What was she going through in those final years? And why did we only start looking back once she was already gone? In the days after her passing, tributes poured in from around the world. Fellow models, designers, and photographers all shared quiet memories of Tatjana Patitz, her kindness, her calm presence, her timeless beauty. But in between the warm memories was a heavier feeling: regret. Regret that the world hadn't noticed sooner. Regret that her absence had gone unquestioned for so long. It was as if everyone had accepted her disappearance as part of the natural rhythm of fame. But now, with the truth settling in, people started digging deeper. And what they found only raised more questions. Tatjana's cause of death was reported as breast cancer. It was sudden to the public, but some close to her knew she had been fighting it quietly, never making it a headline. She didn't want pity, didn't want attention. That choice, while deeply personal, added a new layer of mystery to her story. Why hadn't she said anything? Why had she suffered in silence? And how long had she been carrying this private pain? As more details surfaced, it became clear that Tatjana had spent her final years retreating even further from the spotlight, not just for peace, but possibly because she was preparing for an ending no one else saw coming. She had continued to work occasionally, showing up in small shoots and fashion moments, but always on her own terms. No red carpets. No interviews. Just quiet glimpses, almost like she was fading out gently, without fanfare. But behind the softness was a growing storm. The idea that someone so iconic, so loved, could quietly slip away without the world noticing sparked something deep and uncomfortable. Had the industry failed her? Had the public turned away too soon? People began to revisit her old interviews, combing through her words for signs, anything that might explain the quiet unraveling. One quote stood out. In an old feature, Tatjana had said, "I never sold my soul." It was powerful. It was haunting. And now, with everything coming into focus, it felt like a final message. She had stayed true to herself, but at what cost? The silence, the disappearance, the untold battles, they all pointed to something more complex than the world had ever imagined. And now, as the pieces come together, the full weight of her story is about to come crashing in. Just when it felt like the story had settled into quiet heartbreak, a deeper twist emerged, one that reframed everything the world thought it knew about Tatjana Patitz. As more people began looking back on her life, digging through archives, forgotten interviews, and rare behind-the-scenes moments, a pattern began to take shape. There was something quietly intentional about her disappearance. Not just from the fashion world, but from nearly every form of public life. It wasn't just illness that took her away. It was something that had started long before the diagnosis. A quiet undoing. Friends from her early days in modeling recalled moments where Tatjana would withdraw during big events, choosing silence over the spotlight. One former stylist described how she would often linger by windows at photoshoots, looking out into the distance as if she longed to be somewhere else. This wasn't just the behavior of someone tired of fame, it was someone who felt misplaced inside it. In one resurfaced clip, Tatjana softly admitted that she always felt like an outsider in the industry. "I didn't want to play the game," she said. "I just wanted to live." But what if it wasn't just the industry she was stepping away from? A private document released posthumously revealed that Tatjana had been writing a personal journal that she'd been keeping for years. Not for publication. Not for press. Just for herself. And within it were fragments of thoughts that exposed more than anyone expected. Notes about feeling disconnected. About how the image the world loved never fully belonged to her. How the beauty people admired sometimes felt like a mask she couldn't take off. Then came something no one was ready for, a passage written only months before her death, where she expressed fear not of dying, but of being forgotten. "They will remember the face," she wrote. But not the fight behind it. That single line shook even those who knew her best. Because it meant that even in her retreat, Tatjana wanted to be seen, but not as a symbol of fashion. As a woman. As a mother. As someone trying to hold herself together while the world moved on without asking why she had stepped back. And there was another twist. Her son Jonah had begun quietly working on a project of his own. A tribute, yes, but also a deeper exploration of who his mother really was. Through letters, photos, and voice recordings Tatjana left behind, Jonah began to uncover stories he never knew. Stories of resilience, of loss, of strength hidden beneath silence. Her battles with the industry. Her struggles with self-worth. And above all, her desire to find meaning outside of beauty. Now, as this new layer unfolds, the narrative of Tatjana Patitz is no longer just about a supermodel who vanished. It's about a woman whose quiet retreat was filled with purpose and pain. And as the world begins to finally listen, the question isn't just why she disappeared, but whether we ever truly saw her to begin with. In the end, Tatjana Patitz's story wasn't just about fading fame or walking away from the runway, it was about reclaiming her identity in a world that constantly tried to define it for her. She may have been known globally as a 90s supermodel, but those closest to her knew her as something much deeper, a loving mother, a gentle soul, a woman who lived with quiet strength. Her journey reminds us that beauty, no matter how celebrated, does not shield someone from inner struggle. And that stepping away from the spotlight doesn't mean weakness, it can be the bravest choice of all. The project her son Jonah completed after her death became more than a tribute. It became her voice, finally heard. In it, people saw the full picture of Tatjana's life. Her longing for peace. Her frustration with being reduced to a face in a magazine. Her commitment to raising her son away from the chaos she had once known. And most of all, her refusal to let her legacy be shaped only by fame. In that way, she became something rare in the modeling world, someone who walked away not because she had to, but because she wanted to find a different kind of meaning. Tatjana's story now lives on in quiet corners of the internet, in soft conversations among those who once admired her from afar, and in the hearts of people who understand that not all heroes shout. Some simply choose to live their truth, even when it goes unnoticed. Her life may have ended in silence, but her legacy speaks louder now than ever. She ruled the runway, but more importantly, she ruled her own path. And in doing so, Tatjana Patitz left behind more than just beautiful images. She left behind a reminder that being seen is not about being everywhere. Sometimes, it's about being fully yourself, even when no one is watching.